These guys out here, they've done an awesome job cleaning up and everything. It was a mess. It was a mess, yeah.
6 decades. It's how long Kristen Moorman's grandma,
Yeah, right where that stake is, that was high water mark.
has lived on Swift Creek at Branders Bridge Road in Chesterfield.
She said she lived here 60 years, and she said she had never seen anything like that. She'd never seen it come up that high.
Parts of Chesterfield County saw nearly 10 inches of rain this weekend, causing what some county leaders say was historic flooding near Swift Creek and Falling Creek. All that water flooded out 2 of the 3 water supplies in the county, a hit to the system that's led to water restrictions, meaning essential uses only.
It starts getting warmer and people start using irrigation more, we will not have enough supply in the system. So it's really important for our customers to go out there and turn off their irrigation systems.
County leaders stress the drinking water is safe and the remaining water supply can't sustain the entire county for now if residents do conserve water. It's too early for damage estimates, but Chesterfield leaders say they're in contact with state emergency officials about possibly helping out.
My cousin lives on the house kind of like this, right on the creek, and that was his dock. He said they watched it float away the other night, and it happened to get hung up right here. And
that dock floated half a mile down Swift Creek, and Moorman says, given the amount of water rushing past this weekend, she's glad it's their only concern now.
I don't know, we're trying to decide now if it's easier to put it on a trailer or either just get a bunch of paddles and kind of float it back down there once the water comes down, you know? Look at all the stuff that's moved and everything. Yeah, the power of water is real.
It was a graduate high school in his cap and gown out there, and he had to get maced. What are we teaching us?
A large group of protesters wait for answers at City Hall. A day after Richmond police tear-gassed peaceful protesters on Monument Avenue.
We don't want an apology. We want your resignation today.
The crowd stretched the entire block as Mayor LeVar Stoney and Police Chief William Smith stood before protesters for more than an hour.
It was wrong that what happened yesterday. I apologize for that. It should have never happened.
Stoney promised disciplinary action, but protesters say words mean little.
You're not saying anything, and that's why we're not listening. We want action.
Among those action items, taking down Confederate monuments and reforming how police officers interact with citizens.
When it got dark, we stayed peaceful. And where was that same respect?
Moments of connection played out too. At one point, Chief Smith kneeling on the steps of City Hall next to protesters. The crowd still asking police to hold each other accountable.
You have to stand up against the other officers who are causing violence. You cannot stand around and be silent. I will march with you. I will stand with you. I will be with you.
Protesters across the city say economic and judicial systems have held down people of color for generations.
The community, the education, the mental health.
Getting a college degree isn't good enough. Getting 2 degrees isn't good enough. Going to law school isn't good enough. What the hell is good enough?
As statues come down on Monument Avenue,
they were awarded their Medals of Honor in April of 1865. Extraordinary.
Donald King was working with a group trying to build one.
The heroism of African American troops who beat white troops needs to be told.
14 black Union soldiers secured victory over Confederate troops at the Battle of New Market Heights in Henrico, September 1864.
You don't get 9-0 votes that often.
City Council gave the project the green light for a monument to the New Market 14 on Monument Avenue, but King says it's now on pause.
And all that was ready to go, and then the virus hit, and that slowed things down, and then George Floyd was killed, and that changed everything. And so I don't know what's going to happen next. I don't know whether Monument Avenue will be fountains and modern art, or whether it will have historic figures on it.
As Richmond begins to reimagine what its historic avenue will look like,
and just trying to give a positive energy to the community when they doing what they do, fighting their fight.
Anthony, Javion, and Michael continue to pass out supplies at the Lee Monument like they have for the past month. Finding a way to capture and honor the energy of this moment in Richmond tops their list.
What I think is we should have a great gathering space for people who want to express their artistic freedom.
Document this moment. Have a place where this moment can be seen and remembered 20 years ago. The artwork, the pictures, testimonies of the people.
I think that the consciousness of the nation has been elevated.
King says the statue to the New Market 14 may not be on Monument Avenue, but needs to happen.
I'm not sure what that is on Monument Avenue right now. I think everybody will get behind the statue to these heroes.
King says momentum is building to build a monument to the New Market 14 out in eastern Henrico where the battle took place. We'll have more resources on WTVR.com if you're interested in learning about what happened there. Working for you on Monument Avenue, Jake Burns, CBS 6 News.
Joy comes in the morning light. Hold on, just dry your eyes, 'cause it will be all right.
1 year ago from this Sunday,
I love Ashley McCall-Berry. She's the best mom.
this little boy's mother pushed him away from gunfire.
She took care of us. She was a savior.
Lieutenant Ashley Nicole Berry, a Richmond firefighter, was shot in Hopewell Thanksgiving night 2019. The 33-year-old was not the target of the bullets that ended her life the next day.
A 5-year-old kid shouldn't have to go through that because of somebody else's ignorance.
No one has been charged with murder in the killing of this mother of 3.
You tell somebody, hey, I got you, you're going to be okay, I got you. And they look at you in your eyes and they believe that you got them. Yeah. And then hours later, you realize that you don't have them.
The father of Berry's young son, also a Richmond firefighter, calls the last year hell.
Every medical call, every shooting call I go out here in the community, I relive that every day. And I cry so much because I still don't understand why.
Outside the fire station, where Lieutenant Berry worked, family, friends, and colleagues share more than just sadness this day.
Look at this smile. That says all you need to know about Ashley. A warm and giving woman, an exceptional parent. And as you've heard speak today, Ashley sought only to do the best and to be the best that she could.
She was living proof of a superhero. She saved so many lives, and she's still saving lives in her strength and her courage. Her life is in her children.
The main sentiment shared, though.
Joy comes in the morning light.
The family of a woman who gave back to the community still needs help from the community to move toward closure.
So if you have it inside of yourself or know of anything that can help our family move forward, please, 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 for the love of God, speak. Because you would want someone to do it for your family.
It will be all right.
Virginia's history standards are tainted with a narrative that erases people of color.
Virginia is a place of contradictions and complexity.
That's according to just one of the findings of this commission, whose final report looks at ways to improve how African American history is taught to Virginia students.
The work of this commission has the potential to change the narrative on race in Virginia.
The report finds hundreds of current teaching standards need technical changes because they're misleading or ignore the impact on Black and Native Virginians. For example, this current standard reads, quote, cultural, economic, and constitutional differences between the North and the South eventually resulted in the Civil War. The commission says adding the phrase, quote, all of them based in slavery makes it clearer and more accurate.
We must understand what racism is. Racism is not a personal decision that people make. It is part of a system.
Students know these aspects of history happen, or they can see the effects with their own eyes. If they don't learn in school about the origins of those powerful forces, they will assume correctly that we're not teaching them an honest history.
The commission finds many teachers in Virginia don't feel confident or equipped in teaching African American history to their students. It suggests requiring all Virginia teachers undergo cultural competency training within the next 2 years.
Professional development is necessary. However, professional development alone will not be sufficient for teachers to completely comprehend the experiences of Black and Brown students.
This fall, 16 Virginia school districts are offering a new elective course in African American history, and the commission suggests making it a requirement for graduation in the years to come.
having the Commonwealth as a partner in not just ensuring my children are taught the truth, but that their classmates and future coworkers, colleagues, and managers are also taught that same truth is vital to the protection and prosperity of all our children.
The chairman of the commission says state education officials and the governor's office plan to begin implementing some of these recommendations over the course of the next year. We'll put a link to the entire report on WTVR.com. Working for you in Richmond, Jake Burns, CBS 6 News.
She was a little bit of a rabble-rouser.
In Shockoe Hill Cemetery, where Chief Justice John Marshall is buried, sits a new grave marker with good timing.
Nora died in 1942, and she was in an unmarked grave until August 18th, 2020.
Nora Houston was a well-known artist and teacher who called Richmond home at the peak of the women's suffrage movement.
She knew what was right, and she worked towards that end.
John Tucker with the Nora Houston Foundation says, with her friend Adele Clark, Houston would use her artwork as a form of activism in Richmond.
They would often set up their easels somewhere in Richmond, either at 6th and Broad or Monroe Park, and they would start painting, and crowds would gather to see what they were painting, and then they would launch into speeches about women's suffrage.
As a founding member of the Equal Suffrage League of Virginia, Houston spent nearly a decade advocating for a woman's right to vote, which finally came with the ratification of the 19th Amendment in 1920.
She faced opposition. When she died in 1942, amongst her keepsakes was found a rock. The rock was from an incident that in the 1910s, when she was speaking about women's suffrage, that someone in the crowd didn't like what she was saying, and they tossed a rock at her.
Tucker says Houston's courage extended beyond ratification as she worked to make sure black women in Richmond could exercise that right.
They were successful in personally registering, records have it at over 200 women from Jackson Ward in time to vote for the 1920 presidential election.
While the foundation that bears her name is focused on preserving Houston's artwork, they decided honoring her other accomplishments needed to happen.
She didn't have much money at the time that she died, and then no one else stepped forward and established a marker for her.
So last week, on the 100th anniversary of the ratification of the 19th Amendment, Houston's headstone was finally unveiled to hopefully pique the interest of those who pass by.
Do a little more research to find out what these things were about, what she was about, what that era was about, and how that was a monumental step in the history of Virginia and the history of this country, and that she played a major role in that step.
You can learn more about Nora Houston and the foundation on our website. We have a link on WTVR.com. Working for you in Richmond, Jake Burns, CBS 6 News. In less than 6 hours, 2 men were shot and later died on the same exact block Sunday near Fulton. Both shootings taking place here on the 1200 block of Admiral Gravely Boulevard. Richmond detectives were told looking into if or how these 2 shootings are connected. It's potentially the latest instance of recent violence in the city where officials say payback for an earlier incident resulted in a shooting or death.
Although overall crime in the city is down, that is of no comfort to anyone who is experiencing frequent gun violence in their community.
Richmond Mayor LeVar Stoney says retaliation shootings need to stop. He's asking this of community members.
If you've seen something on social media, if you saw something in person, that you come forward to the Richmond Police Department and give us as much information as possible to stop this retaliation.
We need to come up with a plan.
Pastor Robert Winfrey says doing so many funerals for young people lately gets overwhelming.
When we bring some reality to the after effects of a murder, the after effects of a shooting, and how devastating it is to the whole community.
Winfrey is organizing a program where faith communities adopt areas of Richmond to promote violence prevention and mentoring programs year-round.
And so we can't just start reaching for police to help solve problems in our own community. We have to do that. So when we say that, call and that's good that you can do that. That's after fact.
Mentoring young people in your community, Winfrey says, is something that doesn't require an event or group to start.
Prepare for war in the time of peace before it even happens. and it's not going to happen overnight. It's a process.
Anyone with information about these shootings is asked to contact Crime Stoppers or Richmond police detectives. Working for you in Richmond, Jake Burns, CBS 6 News.
Very low key, kept things simple at home.
A Thanksgiving filled with Zoom and FaceTime for VCU Medical Center ER doctor Stephen Miller's family.
It was definitely disappointing, but we made the most of it.
Many Virginians chose the opposite route this holiday, something Dr. Miller is acutely aware of because of the 8 months he spent treating COVID patients.
There are no great answers, and it's everybody has to kind of take that individual responsibility. There's definitely a lot of disappointment because for us, when we look at doing our job and keeping those numbers as low as possible, it allows us to not only treat COVID patients, but it also allows us to treat non-COVID patients. So the normal emergencies that come through.
Looking at the data, a Thanksgiving spike in cases is not yet reflected because of the testing results lag. But Dr. Miller says hospitals know it's coming.
To what degree, I don't know right now, but I think as a department, as a healthcare system, we are certainly putting every effort into making those resources available and anticipating that kind of growing level.
While Virginia has fared better than other parts of the country, Dr. Miller continues to witness the human toll of the virus here.
I mean, just recently I had not just one patient come in, but it was a whole family. So it was an elderly father, his wife and their daughter, all three of them had to come in. It was a situation where you had 3 people in different rooms and all of them worried about each other. It was one of those things where it came on very fast for them, as they describe it. I had been trying to do the right things, and this got a hold of them, got in their family, and had a huge impact.
Despite seeing situations like this daily for 8 months, Miller says he understands others might be growing tired of COVID guidelines.
I have a second grader and a kindergartner. We're doing virtual schooling. My wife is a high school teacher. But I do have the other side that I see on a regular basis where this is a disease process that can devastate folks.
With vaccines on the horizon and medical knowledge about the virus only increasing, Dr. Miller says the outlook is not entirely bleak. He says that makes it ever more important to do things like wear a mask and socially distance. Working for you in Richmond, Jake Burns, CBS 6 News.
My parents live with us, so it was great just to have everybody real close.
Tracy Avery Jeter did not extend her bubble for her holiday gathering since her parents moved in with her early 2020.
And it just kind of all happened, and then COVID happened, so I was really glad that we were all in the same place, because if not, I've been running all over Richmond trying to make sure my parents were safe.
Based off the data from past holidays, Avery Jeter knows others definitely extended their own social bubble. The registered nurse and COVID testing leader for the Richmond-Henrico Health District says local COVID cases and hospitalizations spike after every single holiday during the pandemic.
You know, nothing has changed as far as the virus is concerned. There's nothing different from, unfortunately, 10 months ago.
Health experts like Avery Jeter say when you return home from a holiday, getting a test ASAP is a must. Tuesday at the Diamond, Richmond-Henrico health leaders are holding a free, large-scale testing event for those who traveled recently or feel sick.
You were negative at that point that you went on vacation, but you may be back now and have the virus. And the only way you'll know that is if you get tested. It's extremely important for you to know your status. And that's the key, because then if you've been exposed to someone, or if you're positive and you don't know it, then you're easily spreading that around. You can't just assume because you feel okay that you don't have that virus.
COVID fatigue is a real thing, especially with vaccine distribution underway. But Avery Jeter cautions that mitigation strategies won't be going away New Year's Day.
But until you're actually fully vaccinated, and then even after that, you need to continue to wear your mask, because not everyone around you will be.
Tuesday's testing event here at the Diamond runs from noon until 2 p.m. Walk-ups are going to be accepted, but those running the show say it is much better if you call ahead and get an appointment. The number to do so is at the bottom of your screen, 804-205-3501. Again, that number, 804-205-3501. Working for you at the Diamond, Jake Burns, CBS 6 News.
just brings a lot of color to the neighborhood. And
It's a simple question with a billion answers.
The stuff we put in the yard posed the question, what made you smile today?
Rob and Lindsay Steele worked on this yard art with their daughters.
the stuff we used, we had around the house, which is kind of cool.
I did the lettering and well, we both did the silly coronavirus cartoon guy.
Yeah.
While neighbors passing by get to soak in this creativity, now so can anyone with an internet connection.
It is all about just that bringing warmth and love to the community when people are stressed and isolated and alone.
Rob works for the local design firm Riggs Ward. They've launched a new project called Art-Solation.
We had been talking over conference call and how a lot of us had seen different kinds of art installations in people's yards and thought it would be kind of a cool idea to create a virtual exhibit for people where we could, document these things and put it on a website for people to enjoy from their own homes.
The firm wants to capture any form of creativity kids or adults safe at home churn out.
Some of the people have repurposed their Santas, the big blow-ups.
And said, wash your hands.
Yeah.
All it takes is snapping a picture and then submitting a brief description through the Art-Solation website.
It's really not about what it looks like in the end. I think it's just the fun of making something.
Lindsay, who teaches art at Glen Allen High School, sees creativity as a tool right now.
I think it's really important. It relaxes you. It takes your mind off of everything that's going on in the world.
No matter the answer to the question in their yard, the Steeles see Art-Solation as a way for artists to inspire each other.
To be documented, since it's in web form now, it's kind of a time capsule where this stuff will always be up to appreciate. I don't know, I hope people are more inspired to continue being creative and trying to bring more light and love and happiness into the world.
She's an amazing, sweet little girl.
12-year-old Lacey lives in Texas. Her aunt, April O'Quinn, is an EMT in Richmond.
She tells everybody about me all the time.
Lacey may tell others about how her aunt saves lives, but it wasn't until after the fact she told April about something big.
Got a phone call from Lacey that told me she had nominated me for a contest.
The popular American Girl Dolls ran a nationwide contest asking families to submit their frontline heroes, people risking their own safety to help others during the COVID-19 health emergency.
I had no words. I ended up crying because I couldn't even say anything.
Last month, April found out from Lacey they'd won.
The stars and brightness in her face and eyes was amazing. It was all worth the pictures, even though I hate pictures.
April is now one of 5 heroes nationwide. American Girl turned into a custom doll, celebrating their service.
Just, honoring people that are out there every day doing what we've done in the past and continue to do today, even though the risk of catching this crazy disease is still there.
April's story likely caught the eye of the contest judges because she knows that risk personally. She caught COVID-19 in March and missed a month of work.
The lung problems was probably like the worst part for me, just not being able, I couldn't lay down. I had to sit up. I slept sitting up. I feel very fortunate that I only have the minor problems I have and I can be back to work.
Emergency medical services seemed like a perfect fit for April, and she didn't hesitate returning to work once doctors gave the okay.
I like to get in there, help people, make them feel better, and step back into the dark,
She's a bit uncomfortable with all the attention, despite thousands of messages of support since word of her doll went public.
The stigmatism of it's a man's world, with EMS. I'm here to show you and prove to you it's not.
Really though, the review she cares about the most is holding on to her doll, thousands of miles away.
It'll be something that neither one of us will ever forget. It's a bond that, that I'll hold with her forever.
If you want to buy one of April's dolls, unfortunately they are not for sale right now. Lacey has the only one that's with her in Texas, but April says she hopes that American Girl does produce a few of them so that some of the profits can go to a worthy cause. Working for you in Richmond, Jake Burns, CBS 6 News. Well, Bill and Candace, those results did roll in fast and were decisive in Virginia for the former vice president. Biden securing the most delegates here in Virginia, with Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders coming in a distant second. Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren and billionaire Michael Bloomberg failed to meet the threshold to secure Virginia delegates tonight. In a place known for its flavor,
Soul Taco is the absolute best.
Richmond Democrats see a spicy presidential primary season come to an end for them.
I think that competition during the primary process makes our ultimate candidate stronger in the general election.
They didn't have to wait long for a call. Only minutes after polls closed, it was clear former Vice President Joe Biden scored a decisive victory in the Commonwealth.
I just really think that, he would be a positive light for folks like me. And so the fact that he's gained the momentum that he has, I just really want to rally behind him.
The former vice president won more than 53% of the vote statewide, with Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders coming in around 23%. Those unofficial vote totals mean Biden and Sanders will get Virginia delegates at the National Party Convention in July.
This year, I was literally undecided up until Friday.
A large field of candidates meant many of these Democrats waited until the very end to decide who got their vote.
I ultimately voted for Elizabeth Warren because I'm ready to see a woman in the White House. But I'm not unhappy that Joe Biden did really well.
Thanks in part to Virginia's results, the field is expected to narrow. Biden and Sanders now likely the front runners for the nomination.
It's going to get messy. I got a feeling it's going to be messy.
I think post-July, we just need to unite around one candidate and make sure that we're there to make sure that we beat Trump and reverse a lot of these policies that have been detrimental not just to the United States but to the world.
The Republican Party of Virginia released a statement on Biden's win. They say that President Trump's agenda has made America a better place for everyone. They note that minority and women unemployment is at historic lows. They also say that Democrats and Biden want to destroy that work. Working for you in downtown Richmond, Jake Burns, CBS 6 News. Yeah, Bill and Candace, that case is travel related, according to health officials. They say right now there's no sign of community spread here in Hanover, Central Virginia, or Virginia as a whole, although they do say that they expect the number of cases in the coming days to continue to increase. Gail McRae scrubs down her son's SUV.
Just like your house, you got to clean it often so it doesn't get bad.
The cleanup is not coronavirus related.
Absolutely not.
Instead, a family trip to Georgia they never thought about canceling.
Well, you don't stop your life for the flu, so why are you going to stop your life for this?
Health officials say it was almost inevitable. A COVID-19 case spread to Central Virginia. The Chickahominy Health District announcing Wednesday a teenager from the Hanover area tested positive for COVID-19. He recently returned from an international trip to a country where COVID-19 infections are widespread. Health officials say the teen did the right thing and self-quarantined when he got home. The positive test coming after he began displaying symptoms.
We are planning for every scenario.
Governor Ralph Northam and state health leaders say their COVID-19 testing capacity has expanded, but they've requested more test kits. The number of positive cases is expected to grow in the coming days.
Until more tests are available for the novel coronavirus, testing at the state lab is being prioritized for people who have respiratory symptoms and were in contact with a confirmed case, traveled to an area where the virus is widespread, or are in a nursing home.
Well, that is getting a little close to home. But
McRae's son lives in Ashland. Even with a case reported nearby, she says the only thing they can do is practice good hygiene.
Wash your hands, don't be putting them in your mouth, that kind of thing. I mean, this is very serious and you have to be smart, but, life goes on and you can't stop.
This is also the prime season for the flu, so health officials say that if you do feel sick, consult your doctor before you do anything else, and also socially distance yourself from others. Working for you in Hanover, Jake Burns, CBS 6 News.
This was like my year I dedicated to get into the best physical shape.
Eric Bryant was the 5th Virginian to test positive for COVID-19.
You truly never know the hour or the day, that we have left on this earth.
After feeling sick the first week of March, the 51-year-old remembers the moment he knew something was really wrong.
Tried to walk our dogs and, I took them outside and it was a challenge for me just to put a leash on them, walk them outside and bring them back in, and I just fell out of breath.
Bryant and his wife rushed to the ER at Spotsylvania Regional Medical Center.
He said, "We're glad you came in when you did." He said, "Because your body's starting to shut down." And probably an hour later, they admitted me and said I had COVID-19. It's hard for me to believe at first, but at the same time, I was happy when I came in when I did.
Bryant's condition deteriorated rapidly, landing him on a ventilator in the ICU.
I went into a coma-like state, and then several days after that, they said I didn't have any brain activity.
Doctors telling Bryant's wife to prepare for the possibility he wouldn't come home.
She was like, he's a fighter. We can do all we can, to keep him here. So they did. They prayed, for healing and turnaround. And it was like the next day when the nurses came in, she called her and said, he can see me.
The nurses, the techs, and so forth, it's taxing on them to not know what's to come, how bad it will be, when it will occur, and they take every single patient personally.
David McKnight is the CEO of the hospital, where they've lost 2 COVID patients so far. Bryant's case, he calls a miracle his staff needs right now.
You want every single patient to walk out just like Mr. Bryant did.
There was days when I didn't think I would walk out of the hospital, and they was reassuring me that I will.
Bryant has been isolated in his bedroom in the week since his discharge.
So I haven't had any contact with my family. The only way I see them, they go and they'll stand on the side of the house. They'll wave at me, through a window.
The simple fact that he's able to do so, Bryant says, is a testament to his doctors and nurses, and he hopes encouragement to other patients.
It's a feeling that I can't describe, and I get emotional thinking about it every time because, I see that so many people have been in my same situation, and unfortunately, some of them didn't make it, and I know I still have a ways to go.
When he first started feeling sick, Bryant says he thought he could sweat out the symptoms. Now, he's urging anyone who experiences anything like the symptoms we've been hearing about to contact their doctor right away. Working for you in Richmond, Jake Burns, CBS 6 News.
But first, your Nissan Play of the Day is from college football. That's right. The first play of the 2020 season, Austin Peay's C.J. Evans Jr. matriculates it 75 yards to the house. The Governors of Austin Peay struck first against Central Arkansas. There will be college football played this year, some with fans, some without fans.
Love to see the triple option. Did you know my grandfather was the band director at Austin Peay for like 30 years?
All tying it in.
Go Govs. Right. Let's go. Yeah, that's right, Bill. The question following that rally really was, would it change the minds of any Virginia Democrats? We got that answer very early Tuesday morning.
We the people!
We the people! Exactly one day after 20,000 gun supporters rallied at Capitol Square.
It's common sense voting against this.
A dozen Republican-sponsored gun bills debated in a small House subcommittee room, and all were voted down.
It's not fair that you're holding our hands behind our backs saying we don't have the right to seek legal recourse.
Jason Nixon's wife, Kate, was one of 11 shooting victims killed at the Virginia Beach Municipal Building last year.
I put my kids to bed at night and they cry a lot, and the holidays are really tough for us.
He spoke in support of one of those bills that would allow families of mass shooting victims like his to sue government entities if a shooting occurred in a gun-free zone.
My wife was murdered in the building. They were supposed to protect her. Supreme Court says it's not their duty to protect them. Well, then whose duty is it? My wife's? She could have protected herself. I asked her to bring a gun that day. It didn't happen. She was afraid of breaking the rules.
Despite the gun rally, Virginia Democrats say it doesn't change the math or their mission on gun violence.
And we're delivering them today because we could not be here yesterday.
Thousands of these postcards were dropped off to lawmakers Tuesday.
Extremism yesterday shut down our First Amendment right to come and assemble peacefully and speak with our lawmakers.
Robin Wilhide says the cards urge lawmakers to stay the course on gun reform.
Virginians will see lower gun violence, lower violence overall. So I think it's all going to flush out, but these are growing pains and we have to move forward.
But they weren't willing to do anything about it.
Nixon is obviously upset his bill was voted down. A symptom, he says, of a political system stuck in a rut on the gun issue.
I don't think anybody should own a silencer. The guy that used that silencer that day when he murdered my wife, he did it for a reason. I think everybody needs to use their common sense and say, okay, what's going to make sense here?
As for that bill specifically that Nixon was advocating for, all the Democrats and one Republican on that subcommittee voted against it, saying it needed further study and that they would do that very soon. Working for the state capitol, Jake Burns, CBS 6 News.
Barbecue pulled pork, some jalapeno cream cheese.
The Big Hot Mess is on the Sunday brunch menu at Heritage.
Yeah, it's definitely a hot mess all around.
Amelia Sperata never thought a dish name could also describe her small business loan application process. The new Federal Paycheck Protection Program, or PPP, was launched to provide small businesses with loans to keep paying their employees. But it ran out of money last week.
We had all of our paperwork ready to go, and we submitted our full applications on the very first day that they were accepting them. And we are still processing. So for me, it's very much like the old school dial-up modem, just dialing, loading, maybe, waiting, just waiting.
According to the Virginia Bankers Association, more than 40,000 Virginia businesses were granted more than $8.7 billion so far. And more than 22,000 applications are still pending, requesting $3.2 billion.
A lot of people refer to this as building an airplane as it was taking off from the runway, and it did feel that way.
Banks and businesses alike adjusted on the fly to new guidelines. The government launched the program, says Bruce Whitehurst, who represents Virginia bankers.
The best advice that I can offer for small business owners is if you think you may qualify and you're interested in a PPP loan, if you're not already talking to your banker, make that today's priority.
Every day, do we have any answers? What are you thinking? When are we reopening? What's the plan? Like, we don't have those answers.
Questions from her furloughed staff are painful enough for Sperata.
It's like you can't fully breathe, like you can't inhale fully because we just we don't know what's waiting around the corner.
She says they did everything they could to apply for the loans, and waiting means more than frustration for her restaurants.
It feels just kind of empty, and it's we miss seeing the people that have been in our lives. We need a plan, and it's not something that we can come up with by ourselves.
What's it basically been like for you guys? You have worked 1,400 overtime hours, huh?
Yeah, I do a lot.
Wow.
It's been rough, but I'm used to working like that. I have always worked like that. Just what I do. And everybody's telling me to slow down. I'm addicted to working. I just always work like this.
Well, people are very nice, so we wanted to be nice to you. Since you do watch Channel 6, I'm sure you've seen the CBS 6 Give segment that we do, and we want to help out people doing great stuff in the community with our friends at Virginia Credit Union. So Valerie, we reached out to GRTC to tell them, hey, we want to find somebody that we can treat this holiday season, and we found you. So on behalf of us, we want to say thank you so much for everything you do in the community and what you have done over the course of this year. It's incredible, and kudos and thank you, and I'd give you a hug if it wasn't for all this, but thank you for your fantastic work, seriously. So it's just a little token of our appreciation there.
Thank you.
It's a small thing, but we think you deserve it.
I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you, Kenny. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Well, whether they're still part of your life or always part of your heart, today is their day. Of course, we are talking about grandparents.
Yeah, today is National Grandparents' Day.
It sure is. Take a look. These are my two grandparents. That is Papa and Nana. Got to take my son Bennett to meet them not too long ago.
And unfortunately, my grandparents, or the last surviving grandparent, died about 15 years ago. So now we have my grandparents. That was the picture just before this picture.
I love it. And that's Angie Judson, our editor, with her grandma. So happy National Grandparents' Day to all of the grandparents out there. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Definitely got some good weather for it, didn't we?
We did. Perfect weather, Mike.
11, restaurant owners in our area wrestling with the tough question of whether to stay open or to close down their doors temporarily. We spoke with the co-owner of a Scott's Addition food spot, and he tells us this issue is far from an easy one.
That was a bit surreal. And
the guest chairs at Long Oven won't come down for at least 2 weeks.
We got out of here last night and everybody gave everybody a bump. And
Patrick Phelan says they'll pay their employees during that time off. The acclaimed Scott's Addition restaurant, just one of dozens in the Richmond dining scene, voluntarily closing their doors for now.
I think the reality is for some people they can make a decision where they can insulate themselves and protect their entire team. And for other restaurants, I imagine it's the reality of laying people off.
Virginia officials have not yet decided to close businesses in the wake of growing coronavirus concerns.
And there's going to be I understand a lot of what ifs.
Governor Ralph Northam says restaurants should find ways to prevent the spread of the virus if they stay open.
It's space the tables out. In other words, don't seat people at every table in the restaurant, but every other table to really encourage the social distancing.
There are a lot of people with, that are balancing just kind of the everyday anxieties of, is it okay to hug my kids when I go home? And that up against, can I save my business? And my wait staff isn't going to get a job down the street tomorrow,
Phelan thinks a mandatory closure would provide greater clarity, especially coupled with tax relief and emergency unemployment benefits for workers.
The safety net for people's livelihoods in this country is not going to have to be based on if you're sick or not.
We have a growing list of local businesses that are closed for the time being, plus several events that are canceled or postponed in Central Virginia. You can find a complete list on our website. That's WTVR.com. Well, Bill and Candace, it could mean online classes for some and an extension of the school year next year for others. State education officials leaving the nuts and bolts of this decision up to local districts, although they will provide guidance tomorrow. Many local education officials say they know this was a tough call and they knew it could be coming, but they still feel blindsided by the gravity of this moment. Many people had a vision for what 2020 would look like, but like the Vikings of Thomas Jefferson Hive, everyone having to adjust because of COVID-19.
This is fluid, it's dynamic, it changes every day.
Governor Northam's decision to close schools for the rest of this academic year applies to both public and private schools. Education officials now working to make sure high school seniors on track to graduate will still be able to do so.
We will be issuing guidance.
Each school district will determine on their own how to wrap up this school year. And state education officials say they'll give local leaders multiple options to make up instructional time missed.
Distance or remote learning, extending the school year next year, embedding some of that instruction into the curriculum in the next year if they don't extend, and maybe continuing instruction now, but maybe we can't get to every student equitably, just bringing some students back to make sure that we fill the gaps for students that were missed.
Northam said he made this decision to close now based on a couple of factors.
The spread in communities continues, the death rate increases. I worry about our capacity in our hospitals.
Leaders from the biggest school districts in the Richmond Metro now asking everyone for patience as students, teachers, and parents enter a new phase of learning. Almost every single local school superintendent said they support this decision, even though they know it was a tough one to make. They'll be communicating with parents about the next steps for this school year in the days to come after the Virginia Department of Education does send out that guidance. Now, meal pickups will continue. That's important. The governor is saying anyone with questions about that can text the word food or comida, C-O-M-I-D-A, to the number 877-877. Again, text those words to 877-877 for information about meal.
No, I'm only going to take these.
The last time the Virginia Senate was forced to meet away from the state capitol was in the 1800s.
Alrighty.
COVID-19 sending senators Wednesday to the Dewey Gottwald Center.
Grant us strength, courage, peace, and kindness as we face this battle together.
Everyone in attendance was asked to follow social distancing guidelines. Northern Virginia Democrat George Barker even set up this plastic surround.
Nor will the pandemic of today thwart our work
to do the people's business.
The House of Delegates met in this makeshift outdoor chamber and faced a 45-minute delay when the voting machines would not work properly.
Madam Speaker, there we go. Thank you.
An effort by Speaker Fillerkorn to move voting remotely failed in the House because of concerns for technical glitches and limits to debate.
We have no assurance that when we go home or to our office that we're going to be able to do our jobs, and if there is a technical problem, that it's going to be able to be resolved.
As for actions on the governor's amendments, both chambers approved delaying the minimum wage increase. The governor's office asked to delay increases until May 1st next year instead of January because of the economic impact of the virus.
Instead of being sympathetic to these businesses in their worst time, we're tightening the screws.
The American economy is 70% driven by consumer spending. And the people that are likely to spend are not the people that are buying new cars or the people with lots of money or business owners. It's people that are at the bottom of the economy.
Both chambers agreed to delay collective bargaining for public employees until May 2021, signed off on amendments allowing casinos and sports betting, and approved taxing so-called skill games to provide a COVID-19 relief fund. The House and Senate both rejected amendments to the marijuana decriminalization bill, sending it back to the governor. After several hours of voting outside the tent, Speaker Fillerkorn appeared to faint following one vote, but after a break, returned to her duties leading the chamber.
Shall the governor's recommendation be adopted?
Her office saying she's okay. Well, good evening, Rob and Bree. Senator Amy Klobuchar suspended her campaign earlier this afternoon. Mayor Pete Buttigieg did the same on Sunday night. Polls and political analysts are saying it's becoming more and more clear that the race for Virginia likely comes down to Bernie Sanders versus Joe Biden.
And Julian Castro.
Amy, not going to butcher that name, so that's McKay.
Marianne Williams. She's not in.
There will be 14 names on Virginia Democratic primary ballots.
Michael Bennett, not familiar.
9 of those candidates have already dropped out of the race. Pete Buttigieg just dropped out last night, right?
Wait, what?
Virginia election officials printed the ballots months ago and cannot change them, even though the field of candidates is dwindling.
I would very much like to see Bernie take us into a better direction than where we are now, so fingers crossed.
Nick Vega backs the current delegate leader, Bernie Sanders. The Vermont senator and former Vice President Joe Biden are seen as the front runners in Virginia and spent time campaigning here in the past week. Senator Elizabeth Warren, former New York Mayor Michael Bloomberg, and Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard also remain in the race.
I think the less candidates, the better, because there's just too many spread out.
Alexandra and Paula Cook may end up supporting different candidates on Tuesday. Both are hopeful the eventual nominee isn't damaged too badly in the nominating process.
They trip each other up all the time, and I just want them to get to the point where they're on the same page and unifying, and whoever that is, I'll vote for them.
It's kind of all bets are off in the beginning. And let's hear, from all of them.
Before Senator Amy Klobuchar dropped out, Sarah Long planned to support her. The 2020 primary felt messy to some Democrats, but Long says at least Virginia voters got to see the battle of ideas play out firsthand.
Exactly. I mean, isn't that a democracy?
As of Monday morning, more than 54,000 absentee ballots have been returned so far for this primary season. State election officials say that's more than double the amount on Super Tuesday in 2016. They don't know whether that means it's more energy for this election or if people are just taking more advantage of absentee voting. We do know that anyone who already cast an absentee ballot for a candidate that has now dropped out cannot change that vote at this point. Working for you in Richmond, Jake Burns, CBS 6 News. Yeah, Rob and Candace, it was mostly a peaceful crowd. Many of these people getting involved in the Second Amendment sanctuary movement that began late last year and wanting their voices to be heard right here on Capitol Square. The messaging at the rally was very similar to the messages we've heard in the years past, but the reality of this year is the politics are much different here surrounding gun control.
It is really cold on January 20th in Virginia.
Bundled up and some outside the gates, heavily armed.
99% of this crowd owns guns and they've never shot anybody.
Gun owners and pro-gun activists on the Capitol lawn spend 1 hour bashing gun control bills pitched by Virginia Democrats.
In 2018, I predicted this. I told them that if you're going to insist
that the way to deal with violence is to punish law-abiding citizens, there will be no end to the restrictions on our Second Amendment rights.
The overarching theme from the Virginia Citizens Defense League rally: the nation's founding fathers protected guns in the Constitution for a reason.
We will not comply with bans, registration, or confiscation.
They want Governor Northam and Virginia Democrats to reconsider what gun activists say is an overreach on gun restrictions.
Thomas Jefferson said, "The strongest reason for the people to retain the right to keep and bear arms is to, as a last resort, to defend themselves against a tyrannical government."
If you have your gun, you can keep it.
Democrat Chris Hurst says the democratic process is also based off elections, and his party ran on gun safety issues for many years.
The numbers that I really look at, more so than the thousands of people potentially who were here today, were the 2 million people who voted in November. And the results of that election were clear that Virginians wanted a Democratic majority in both chambers in order to take action to try and save lives from gun violence.
I voted Republican.
Philip Goodwin knows Democrats have power and can pass any bills they please. He hopes the day energizes more voters like him in the future.
I think it's going to be a wake-up call for Virginia, and I think we might see different results in the upcoming elections.
As for the realities of now, Democrats do have the power to stiffen background checks in the state, reinstate the one handgun purchase per month law, and establish red flag laws here in Virginia. It's unlikely that this rally changes that reality. Working through the state capitol, Jake Burns, CBS 6 News. Well, while students are at home without class, a local museum is asking for their help. They want young people to explain the impact of the virus on daily life for future generations, all through their own words and creativity.
So the Valentine is Richmond City History Museum.
With normal life completely altered because of coronavirus.
And one of our goals for working with students is to get them to start seeing themselves in Richmond history.
The Valentine, asking Richmond students to crowdsource historical documentation of this moment.
So what an amazing tool to really help them start thinking about the way that they are kind of living through a historic period right now.
The museum is calling on any student to submit journal entries, family interviews, or artwork explaining what this moment is like for them.
Recording anything from mundane observations to big thoughts about how things are changing day to day.
Liz Riley Brown says 2 entries stood out so far, including this letter from a local 8th grader.
Everyone from his class are going to different high schools next year. And so he's like, I might not see some of my classmates ever again. And so thinking about like, these are things that are weighing on young people in a way that I just hadn't thought about, which was interesting. And then we had a first grader from Richmond make a really cool collage. And it mentioned that she's worried about her grandparents and really just encouraged like, hey, we all need to stay home right now. And I love, she added, please stay home. It's really not that hard.
Snapshots of thought, the Valentine says, that will help tell the full story of this moment.
We're hearing a lot from experts, from elected officials, but taking a moment to elevate the voices of young people who maybe we don't listen to and hear their experiences as often felt like an important and special moment.
Well, Bill and Candace, those education advocates say that Virginia ranks 40th in spending by the state per student and ranks 32nd in teacher salaries. They say that Virginia needs to boost those rankings. They need to do it this year.
Real technical education teachers, nothing but the best.
Between these 3 RPS teachers, more than 90 years of experience.
We stay in this fight because we love teaching. We love what we do.
Plenty of time to shape young minds, but also time, they say, to see firsthand what underfunded schools look like.
It's unreal to me. And you're always on the teachers about the performance of our children, but you don't give us what we need to help our children.
When public schools are under attack, what do we do? Stand up, fight back.
The Virginia Education Association says Governor Northam's budget doesn't go far enough.
And let's try actually funding our education, funding our schools for once. And I don't mean robbing Peter to pay Paul, like giving us an increase here if it means you're going to take something from this side.
They're calling for budget amendments that fully fund state-mandated standards of quality and increase teacher pay raises.
It is time! It is time! It is past time to fund our future!
We've got a ways to go on that, but we are committed to getting as close, if not all the way.
Senator Jennifer McClellan's son, an RPS student, attended the rally. She says new state tax revenue coming in could offset the millions of dollars needed to meet the teachers' asks.
We're going to look at every option to figure out where can we shift priorities, and some of the new funds that are coming in, how can we use those as well.
Our buildings need a lot. We need a lot of attention.
And longevity.
Yes.
When you have teachers with this amount of years experience, we know what to do in the classroom.
These teachers say lagging funding from the state means losing teachers like them and holding back Virginia students.
You need to do the right thing and put your money where your mouth is, because anybody knows wherever your heart is, that's where your money is.
That's right.
So show us.
The governor's office says his budget makes historic investments in Virginia's most vulnerable students and includes a 3% teacher pay raise in the second year. Republicans and Democrats have proposed hundreds of amendments to the Northam's budget, and they'll be considering those amendments in the coming weeks. Working through the state capitol, Jake Burns, CBS 6 News.